Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about how I knew for a fact that I was actually female to male transgender and not just gender non-conforming. For those of you who are new to my channel, hello, thank you for joining us today. My name is Dakota and I am FTM transgender, which means that I was assigned female at birth and later on I transitioned to male. I started testosterone in 2017, which means that this year in October I will be 6 years on testosterone. So if you have any questions about transitioning or anything like that, you can ask them in the comments of this video, or you can go check out all of my other videos. I have several playlists talking about, updates throughout my transition, starting from when I was pre-T all the way up to, I think the most recent one that I did was 4 years on T. There's a ton of videos that you can go through and look at, but today we're just going to be focusing specifically on how I knew that I was trans and not just gender non-conforming. This is something that I get asked actually pretty frequently. I'll take you guys all the way back to around 2015, 2016. I was 16 years old and I was on Tumblr a lot when I was a teenager. And if you were on Tumblr back in that era, the 2014 through 2016 Tumblr era, you know that there was a lot of online discourse at the time, especially in regards to the LGBT community, and at that time I was out as a lesbian, I was openly gay, I was openly queer. I didn't really know what being trans was, I had never really heard that terminology used before, and so it was a very fresh new concept to me. I just remember my first experience online where I kind of found out about what being transgender really meant was on YouTube. I fell down the rabbit hole, as one does, and I found this transgender short film. It wasn't in English and I don't remember the name of it. I'll find it and I'll put the thumbnail up here for you guys so you can see it, and maybe I'll link it in the description as well if you're interested. It's very old. But that was the first time that I was ever really introduced to the concept of transgender, and at the time I didn't really make the connection. I kind of knew that, I was very tomboyish, I was always very rugged, I was never really super girly, I didn't really get into any girly stuff like makeup or anything stereotypically feminine. I was pretty openly against, but I never quite made the connection that what these trans guys were describing in their videos was what I was feeling. And so I would go on Tumblr and I would see all these people talking about transitioning, and I would watch all these YouTube videos describing going on HRT and getting top surgery and things like that. And I would feel this this feeling in the pit of my chest. It kind of felt like a longing, like I was missing something out of my life, but I didn't make the connection that it's because I was trans as well. So I kind of lived in denial for a little bit, and then at one point I found out on Tumblr again what being gender fluid was, where people, from day to day, just depending on how they felt, they would either present more feminine or they would present more masculine. And my little pea brain was like, you know what, I think I'm gender fluid. At that moment in time, that's what I felt like. I was like, oh my god, light bulb moment, I'm actually gender fluid. So I came out to myself and some select friends as gender fluid. I specifically remember writing in my journal at the time, in big bold letters across the whole page, I am gender fluid, it was this massive, life-altering decision for me. However, I didn't tell my family, and like I said, I really only told people online and my close friends. And for the most part, I was still presenting feminine, as in I just looked like a very butch lesbian. I was always very tomboyish. I never wore dresses or anything like that. But I started kind of experimenting with my friends at the time, asking them to use he, him pronouns for me. I hadn't changed my name at that point, so I was still going by Aspen. I didn't start going by Dakota until I came out as trans later on. So it was an interesting experience because whenever I would hang out with my friends, I would hear, he, him being used in reference to myself, and then I would go home or I would be in class with teachers or with my parents and I would hear she, her, and I distinctly remember whenever people would use she, her pronouns for me, it always felt so wrong. After I'd heard people using he, him, and referring to me as a boy, anytime somebody referred to me as anything other than a boy or a guy after that, it felt entirely wrong. I kept digging and digging further into the online community, the online trans community, and I kept finding more people to talk to and more trans guys to follow along and keep up with their journey. And then I feel the biggest turning point in my decision-making process when I discovered that I was actually transgender and not just gender non-conforming. So I met the first trans person that I knew of in high school. We became really close friends really quickly, and through him I was able to meet some other trans people in real life as well. And I feel like that was like a major turning point in my thought process in regards to my own identity and my own gender. Dude, I feel like my camera is just like slipping more and more down. Do you guys see that, or am I going crazy? Okay, I tightened it up. Hopefully it stays in place now. Sorry about that. I just like slowly noticed the camera like gliding off screen. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah. So, like I said, I had started to make trans friends in real life, and meeting with them and talking with them and kind of watching their own journey like in real time instead of just, you know, weekly or monthly videos online or posts on Tumblr. It was such an eye-opening experience because at the time, the trans guy that I met in high school, he was still pre-T, pre-everything. So he had socially transitioned, but he had not yet started to medically transition. I remember hearing about him starting testosterone, and I remember talking to his other trans friends about how they started testosterone and how they had been seeing all these changes in their body and their voice was getting deeper and they were growing facial hair and stuff like that. And I remember like, it was like a light bulb moment, like something clicked in the back of my brain and I was like, I want to experience that. Like, I want facial hair, I want a deeper voice, I want people to perceive me as male all the time. And so I feel like the main thing that really shifted how I looked at myself and my own gender identity was meeting other trans people in real life and realizing that what they were experiencing was something that I also wanted to experience. Does that make sense? Like, I was never peer pressured, I guess, into transitioning. It was literally just exposure to trans people both online and in real life that kind of molded my identity. It wasn't a sudden change, it was a gradual exposure to more and more trans people and more experiences that those trans people were going through that then caused the click. It wasn't like all of a sudden, one day I learned what being gender fluid was and then the next day I learned what being trans was and I just instantly shifted. It was kind of like a gradual change. And so, you know, that's kind of why sometimes I find it a bit difficult to explain my thought process to people, but that is like how it went down for me. And I think probably like the tipping point was, even though I saw my trans friends in real life and online as well, I saw and I heard stories about the hardships that they faced because of their trans identity. Like, I saw how they were treated by my peers and by the administrations and, you know, adults at the school. And even though I saw all of those hardships that my trans and queer friends were going through, they were still happy because they were living their truth. There's nothing wrong with tentatively labeling yourself something just because you don't either know the right terminology for how you actually feel, or just because you're not comfortable with coming to terms or coming out publicly as how you really feel. There's nothing wrong with that. But I realized through, you know, like I said, observing trans people both online and in person, I realized that I could no longer live as gender fluid. I knew that I was actually just transgender. I knew that I wanted to fully transition to male. And once I made that realization, I was like, no, I can't keep... Of course the garbage truck decides to come right fucking now. So yeah, that was like the main thing. Once I realized that the gender non-conforming label was no longer serving me, it was no longer doing my identity justice, I was like, gotta get rid of it. I have to accept myself for what I truly am. And I came out. That's when I started the process of coming out. But yeah, so that's kind of a quick summary of how I discovered that I was not just gender non-conforming, I was actually transgender. I hope this video was helpful. I feel like I was able to articulate how I was feeling at the time and what I was going through at the time fairly well. If you still have any questions, you're more than welcome to leave them down in the comments of this video. If you experienced anything similar, or if you went through something kind of like along the same lines where you maybe thought you were gender non-conforming at first and then later found out that you were something else entirely, feel free, again, to leave your experiences down in the comments below. Before I forget, I know this is such like a stupid spiel, but if you did enjoy this video, go ahead and click the thumbs up button down below. Leave a like, it helps a lot with my engagement for my channel. And while you're down there, you might as well subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future videos. It's free, it means nothing to you, but it means the world to me. We recently surpassed, I think, 6,000 subscribers, which is awesome. We are on the road to 10K. One of my 2023 goals is to hit 10K subscribers this year, so we're well on our way there. Thank you guys so much for all of your continued support throughout this journey here, and I hope I will see y'all in the next video.